Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learning from Smart People. I am your host, Rob Oliver, and I appreciate you being with me today. Uh, I've got an interesting guest with me today. Her name is Carmela Montenegro, and she has a track record of increasing Instagram profiles up to 75% year over year and getting up to 400 attendees to a first-time event with absolutely no budget. She is currently a freelance digital marketer for Koda and Crush Marketing and has a lot of insight on marketing with a minimal budget. Now that I've gotten my tongue completely untied, Carmela, welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be here, Rob.
Yeah, fantastic. So I was excited because so many times we talk about marketing and there is a cost associated with it. And a lot of small businesses don't have much of a budget for that. A lot of small businesses, you end up, as a solopreneur where one person's doing everything and they would love to outsource. They would love to bring in someone else to do things, but they just don't have the money for it. And so I'm thinking, all right, if we're looking at how to do things on a shoestring budget, I am very happy to talk about that because I operate on a shoestring budget. So let's get right into it. Give me a little bit of background on you. For those that don't know, we actually had started to record this conversation and had bandwidth issues. So we're starting all over again from the beginning. But give me a little bit of your backstory as to kind of how you came to get some of this experience and insight and expertise on marketing.
Yeah, so Rob mentioned that I have a background in increasing Instagram traffic and getting attendees with $0 in budget. And the reason I had to be able to get somewhere in marketing is because I was forced to make some quotas on working in a nonprofit. So with the Instagram, I worked at my university. It was essentially a nonprofit, and my internship was also at a nonprofit in Milwaukee. And we didn't have much budget either. So I think a lot of what marketing should be is focusing on the essentials and focusing really on what the customer needs and wants. When I was getting into marketing, I was getting frustrated. You just have to remember marketing is to appeal to the customer, the client, whoever you call them, because without customers, you essentially don't have a business. If you read about what Quibi had, they had $7 billion in seed and funding money, but they didn't do enough customer research.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So you said you need to focus on the essentials. What would you define as the essentials?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think, again, the core focus would just be on the customer, starting from there. When I was gearing things up to work in university, I worked for the University Recreation Department. I I interviewed I didn't exercise much. I was active, but I didn't exercise much to really know what the general demographic was. So sometimes I just approached students or patrons that were walking by and just asked them, hey, can you give me a couple of minutes? Tell me what's on your Instagram feed right now. What kind of platforms are you active on? And really understanding people that I was surrounded by, but I didn't really understand. So it gives you a lot of insight on what kind of content they're consuming first. And when I asked them to read some captions on their Instagram, it gave me an idea of what kind of copywriting and headlines I should have when I'm posting stuff on Facebook and Instagram.
So do you have suggestions for folks, you know, running a small business? A lot of time, well, right now, you can't go out and, meet with your clients and ask them to look at their Instagram feed. Do you have some suggestions as to how folks can make those connections today if we're not able to do that in person meeting?
Yeah, so I'm currently working with a business coach, and he asked me, how do people make the sale? What's the number one way to make the sale? And I spent a few minutes thinking like trust, you have a good product, you have a good service, good customer to mentor fit. And he said, you just ask.
Okay. So,
It's crazy. Yeah.
and I guess what I'm thinking about though is as well figuring out which platform you need to be on in order to make the right connection. Do you have suggestions? As are there different platforms that appeal to either different age groups or to different types of clients or customers? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So think a little bit about your customer demographic. For example, with my freelance work, I target small businesses, B2B customers. So my most active social media platforms would be on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So when I approach somebody who I think would be a potential fit for my services, I don't really try and sell them to begin with. I want to understand um, like what they're looking for when they're looking to expand their customer base and increase their revenue. And then if the time comes to it, I'm a marketer. I don't really like to sell much, but
Sure.
yeah, I try and understand what they're looking for when it comes to marketing. And if I seem like a good fit, I'll go on from there. And same thing with Facebook. Usually I go into associated Facebook groups. When I was working with an old friend where we were looking to start our sustainable trailer company, we would go into Facebook groups that have like sustainable life, hashtag van life. We looked up Facebook groups that fit relatively close to the demographic we're looking into.
Okay. So what you're basically doing is looking at your target demographic and saying, where are they on social media? And once you find out where they are, that kind of dictates where you go and where you focus your efforts. Uh, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you're breaking it down into kind of simple steps, and it sounds to me like you're making marketing less less complicated and less kind of like scary. You're almost making marketing simple. Is that an accurate statement?
Oh yeah. A lot of some of my work is coming through like consulting in one-on-one strategy sessions with clients. Like I know some founders, they can't afford me to do services, so I also offer like one-on-one hourly sessions per month. And I think that's really important because once the founder knows marketing, it makes it a lot easier if they were to hire a full-time marketer and make their job a lot easier and go farther rather than having unrealistic expectations when they do or if hire their first person to do marketing for them. And also, when I was in college, I wanted to be a music educator, so I have a little bit of expertise in education, trying to make things easier for people to understand. It just makes life a whole lot easier, just figuring out how to simplify everything and focusing really on the foundations.
I, Let me just see if I can summarize what I heard you say when you were talking to people and talking to potential clients. You basically were talking to them to find out, and this is going to be way simple, a way simplistic analogy. Okay. And it is, what is your itch? And then once you find out what their itch is, you say, okay, this is how I scratch your itch. And then, do you want me to do this for you? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. So, as someone who has allergies, I can definitely relate to this. It's like saying, I can help you scratch the itch, but I can also figure out where your allergies are so you can avoid
Yeah.
peanuts
Okay.
or something. I don't know. I'm
Right.
not a
Well,
doctor.
sure. But, and I guess, you know, um, to use another analogy, it's, what is your pain point? And, how do we alleviate the pain? And there are two elements to alleviating the pain, and I think you hit both of them. The one is to address the symptoms. So, if you're having pain, then you take something that, like a pain medicine, or if you take a Tylenol or whatever it is to alleviate the pain. But then you also have to figure out what is causing the pain, and you're addressing both sides of it, both the current situation of, I'm in pain, help me get out of pain, and the long-term situation is, let's figure out what the problem is and solve it on a long-term basis. Is that right?
Mhm. Oh yeah, definitely. Like I can be the band-aid for all your marketing skills, but if you don't really know how to give me feedback and know how to take the feedback that I give you on what I'm learning from your customers,
Mhm.
you're those are really customers and clients that I don't really want to work with, to be honest, because if they're just asking me to put a band-aid on the solution, like if they want me to scratch their itch, but they're not trying to cut down on their peanut butter addiction when they're allergic to peanuts, that's a whole, I can't help you that far.
Right. Okay. It makes good sense. Um, you mentioned something a little bit earlier. You talked about the fact that you're a marketer, not a salesperson. And I feel your pain with this. Okay. I'm a speaker, I'm a writer, I'm all of these things, but I'm not like sales isn't my thing. I didn't become a speaker because I wanted to go out and sell to potential customer. Like I want to be in front of the audience. I want to be sharing material. That's who I am. And I just, I'm curious to hear more about your strategy that says, how can you, how can you take something that is not your primary skill set and yet is an essential part of your business and still be able to accomplish that?
Okay, okay. Let me think. Sales suck. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Right.
Um, for marketing, what I really focus on is creating value or what value I could bring instead of trying to sell them to pay like, hey, this is $500 a month. You can say, I can help you. I can bring 400 attendees to your audience. I can reduce the bias in your training program instead
Okay.
of talking about the price.
So yeah, in some ways, this guy I listen to, his name's David Newman, and he talks about basically selling it, reverse engineering your sale, in which um, find out what is your pain point, what does it cost you, what is this particular thing costing you per month. If I can solve that, if I can bring you, if we can address this dollar amount in your budget, we can then, here's what it costs to bring me in, and here's how my cost compares to the actual cost of what your issue is. And it really kind of in some ways becomes a no-brainer that
Mm-hmm.
um, if I can either generate X number of dollars or I can save you X number of dollars, then my fee makes a whole lot of sense. I guess it really comes down to, you've got to know your customer. You've got to learn about your customer. You've got to find out what it is that they're they're concerned with, what it is that they want. And that's what makes the difference at the end of the day, because it's got to be all about your customer. Am I right with that?
Oh yeah, 100% about the customer. And same thing about the pain point. You want to know where their pain point is because when, in my opinion, if you start talking about price, it's more about you as the salesperson instead of focusing on the customer and filling in the gaps.
Yeah. Um, and that's, we need to make money. We need to do, something to put bread on the table. But at the end of the day, if you're, what you're saying is if you're working towards solving problems, then kind of the money side takes care of itself. And I want to hit on something else that you said. You talked about your background in, is it music education. Is that what you said? Uh, and how what you're doing is educating. And is that basically what the job of a marketer is to educate people? Or how do those two work together?
Yeah, so I feel that getting into marketing was a whole lot easier because when I was an educator, I was able to practice empathy. I was really able to understand people's needs and wants. I was also in college. I worked as an outdoor educator, so I would be in the middle of nowhere with students up to 9 or 10 days at a time. So you have to really understand and empathize um, with your participants very intimately. Makes it a whole lot if you kind of do that same thing with marketing. Marketing is taking shift toward education and delighting your customer compared to just pushing sales down their throats. If you've heard of content marketing and inbound marketing, it's more about providing you. That way you can build yourself expert and build trust with your potential customers. And when you when you distribute content that's high value and you position yourself as an expert, lead quality gets higher. You don't have to spend as much of your time on sales because if they really want you, they really want you.
What is marketing all about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was listening to a podcast by Dave Gerhardt. His podcast group is DGMG, if anybody's curious. He was talking about how can you explain marketing? And he says, marketing is to make sales easier.
Okay.
And everybody's interpretation of it is very different.
What does that mean to you?
Oh gosh. Um, for me as a former educator, as a former educator, I feel like my 2021 marketing plan is focused on positioning myself as an expert in content marketing. So, gonna hire someone to work on blogs. So, when people Google's how to do social media as a solopreneur, my blog is more likely to come up.
Okay.
They kind of get a little familiar with my company, and then if they see me on LinkedIn, they're more likely to reach out.
So yeah, people are becoming more familiar. So it doesn't always directly lead to sales. In some ways, it kind of can indirectly lead to sales. And ultimately, what that is it's making your sales easier because your customers know, at least recognize you, they know who you are, and they've got some respect for you as an expert because you're putting your name out there and your information out there. Is that summarizing accurately what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's getting pretty close to it. I think the other thing is to try and keep them in your wheelhouse. So what I do for that is email marketing. That way, if they're even curious about it, they still get value from my email marketing list. Every other week, I share something that's happening in the marketing news and an actionable tip at the end of the email.
Okay.
That's another way to keep them in your funnel.
Got it. All right. So you just brought up a couple different things, and I'd love to get more information about what you're talking about. Okay. So
Yeah.
you talked about earlier Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and you just brought up the concept of email marketing and of funnels. What is email marketing and what are funnels?
Yeah, I'll answer email marketing first. Email marketing is surprisingly one of the most wonderful things you need to have if you're a small business owner. The reason I say that is because if someone has even remote interest, it's easy to get their email and you can keep them in your back pocket, because not everybody who approaches your company or your services is ready to buy. So with email marketing, you can keep reminding them, um, hey, I'm here. I'm here to provide value. I'm here to build trust with you. And then if like 3, 4, 5 years down the road, they figure that they need a speaker because they're hosting a first time event, they'll say, hey, I remember signing up for email 3 years ago. Let's schedule a time to talk. So it's an easy way to keep them in your funnel.
All right.
And
And so you just mentioned funnel again. So what is it,
yep,
that concept?
yeah. So every it's kind of interchangeable depending on what kind of marketer you talk to. But when I say funnel, other marketers use it as pipeline. So when you find someone who's interested in your product, you have them at the top of this funnel or pipeline. And when they keep on being introduced to your services, your product, your values until they're ready to buy, they move farther down the funnel. Some other businesses use it as a pipeline, not to confuse it with like everybody else's marketing funnel.
Sure. Okay. I mean, is it, in some ways, I'm assuming that it's all kind of like spokes on a wheel in that they're all ways in which you're leading your customers towards a sale. Is that I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
live in a
So
world. I told you I live in a world of analogy. I can't tell anybody what something is, but boy, I can tell you what it's like.
totally relatable. When I was going through music lessons, everything was an analogy. Every other word, every other sentence was an analogy. So I can definitely relate to that.
Sure.
So what you just described was flywheel, is the flywheel concept, which is a new take on the marketing funnel slash pipeline. So if you move farther down the funnel, imagine there's like holes at the side of it. So as you try to entice your reader, they go down the funnel, but some will escape. So they'll poke through the holes that you have in the side of your funnel. Whereas when you were talking about the wheels and the spoke, that's that similarly relates to the flywheel marketing as introduced by HubSpot in like 2014, 2012, something like that. That it's attract, engage, and delight. So it's the new take of the marketing funnel. Here's where I'm providing value. You Googled something in my blog post showed up. Attract, engage, and then you keep on entertaining them through like email marketing, and they become like your customer somewhere in there. And then delighting them is kind of the part where when you have them on as a client, they're really happy with your services, that they kind of turn into referrals, or they create a review or a testimonial that will go back up to the attract. So it's just a whole wheel.
And it all basically, and interestingly enough, that HubSpot's the one that came up with it because it's all part of the wheel and it all leads you into the center, into that hub where um, they become your client and you've got a relationship with them. Um, we're we're getting towards the end, but I've got a couple thoughts that I want to get from you because we talked about this, the idea of doing this on a limited budget. So how much of this can be done for free? How much of this can be done with, some basically on the cheap ideas?
Yeah. So if I had $0 today and I were to start another freelance business for marketing, I don't know, if I were to start today, I would go to social media. It's free.
Okay.
I would establish myself as an expert. So start getting well read on books, podcasts, blogs, and just kind of sharing those along with my insights. And the hardest part is that you're going to eventually have to make a sale. What I've done with my first client is I treated them like they were my baby. Like, we talked every other week. I made sure that I was almost over communicating, and I made sure that they were as happy as they can be. And if anybody looks for a referral, they would approach him for it. And he liked me enough that he put a review on my Google My Business page and my Facebook page.
Okay.
And if anybody is interested in that, they're likely to see that review.
Sure. So, I mean, the three stages that you had talked about before were attract, engage, delight. And what you're trying to make sure is that your client, this is your first, even before they're your client, your first potential client, and you are trying to make sure that they are thrilled with you so that, as they become your client now, they are sharing your information. They're sharing, how amazing your work is with other people. And that's got to be something that's going to help you to engage with more clients and more customers.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So then if you're talking about starting with $0, if somebody has a little bit of money, let me just, I guess, what is the base amount that you would say that you would have to have before you can invest in, kind of a social media manager or something like that? And, is that something that can be done through Fiverr, or is it something that it's going to take a little bit more than that? Or what would you estimate on how do you maximize your budget? How do you make your dollars go further?
How do you make your dollars go further? Okay. If I only had $100, I would talk to people who are in my customer wheelhouse. People, if I were targeting e-commerce companies that were selling nail polish or something, I would talk to as many of those, say, thank you for chatting with me. Here's a $5 gift card.
Okay.
And then probably the next thing I would do with the next $50 is to work on a website. You
Got
want
it.
something, when people are interested in a product or looking for something to solve their problem, I want to say like 82% of the time, the first place they go to is Google.
Okay.
So establish yourself with a website. If you had more than $300 to $500, I would consider marketing. Figure out, but I wouldn't just figure out like, hey, I need someone to fix my marketing, but I don't know where the hell I'm going. Think about where specifically your pain point is. Are you looking for something to consistently bring revenue? Are you looking to go long term? Do you have a ton of people on your email list that are not buying from you? It depends on where your pain point is, and consider hiring a marketer to really help you.
Okay. So, and is it, when you say hire a marketer, how can marketers be hired? Is it on retainer? Is it on a monthly basis? Is it on a per, I don't even know, is it on a per project basis? How are marketers hired, and what's the kind of current market situation there?
Yeah. So myself and some other marketers that I've connected with, we work on a monthly basis with a recommended minimum of like 6 months. We recommend 6 months. I recommend 6 months, mainly because it takes a while for marketing to stick. And it also takes a while for your marketer to really understand you, your customer, and your goals. Most of the time when I bring on a client, they have an idea of their goals, but pinpointing where the real issues are take like 2-3 months usually. And then really leaning into that happens after we figure out what specifically is happening there.
Okay. So it would generally be then on a monthly retainer basis, and your suggestion would be to at least start with a minimum of 6 months that allows you to establish the relationship and kind of get to know each other and figure out how you as a marketer are going to be able to best represent your client in the social media and online world. Is that all right?
Oh yeah. To give you an analogy, it's like if you want me to fix your marketing, it's like working out 7 days a week for a week and expecting results, where you should be working out like 3 to 4 times a week for the next like 6 months.
Okay. So yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's, it's the old, like, I didn't have fries with my lunch, so like, why didn't I lose weight today? Right. Yeah. Understood completely. Listen, Carmela, you've given us a lot of information, given us a lot to think about. If folks are looking to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
You can find me at kodaandcrushmarketing.com. Website's being rebuilt, so be on the lookout for that.
All right.
The next best place you could find me is on my LinkedIn account, linkedin.com/in/Carmela-Montenegro. Had to memorize that. Those are the two best places to reach out to me.
Cool. And you have been very kind, and you have offered to do, or you've given a discount on a social media marketing audit. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so social media marketing audit, it's for people who want to do marketing themselves, but they're looking for, or people who are doing marketing themselves, but they're not ready to take the leap to hire somebody to manage it full time. So a marketing audit is a way for you to figure out what's going well, how you can improve and take it to the next level. So what I do with my social media audits for my clients is I have a 22 question checklist that I would run through. And I would also record a video of me going through your social media, and I would take notes of that, and you would have that copy. And then afterwards, we would also have a strategy call to grow your social media on your own terms.
Okay. So it would be just kind of having a set of expert eyes go over what you're doing and give you some tips on what's going on right now and how to move forward and strengthen what you're doing, which would be very valuable. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to that. And I will also put a link because you've got a bi-weekly email that comes out and folks can get on there and learn a little bit about digital marketing. You mentioned that earlier, so I'll put a link to that there as well. Carmela, thank you so much for coming on today. And I really appreciate that. We have come to my favorite portion of the show, which is 3 questions to establish your humanity. Are you ready for these?
Let's go. Let's go.
All right. So question number 1 is, what did you want to be when you grew up? So as a kid, what was your goal of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh gosh, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to see things that people didn't want to see. I wanted to do something different from what my friends were into. They wanted to be like doctors and nurses. I wanted to see stuff no one else has seen.
That would be awesome. You know, just have the experience of seeing what you want to talk about, seeing things from a totally different perspective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Did you have a pet when you were growing up?
We, growing up, my mom surprised me. She gave us like 7 parakeets. Got them from a relative, and I do not remember the names, what I named all of them, but my favorite one was Dove because she was this white little parakeet and she like cut little things in my paper, but it was short lived. They passed away in the cold, but probably.
Right. Yeah. What? Okay. And I just have to say that like having a parakeet named Dove would be a little bit ironic to me because you're naming one bird after another bird. It would be kind of like having a dog named Cat or something. It just seems to be slightly unusual. All right. Last question for you. You are up in the greater Boston area, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was to come up there, and what would be the restaurant of choice that you would say, this is where we've got to go to get a taste of the town?
To get a taste of the town, I would probably say, if you want to do something touristy, I would say like the Omni Parker Hotel and get like the original Boston cream pie.
Okay. As someone who lives there though, what would you say is the place where the locals go that isn't the touristy place?
A place where the locals go. It's kind of hard because I've only really lived here for a year, but
Okay.
a hidden gem I would say is the Lobster Stop in like Quincy / Weymouth border. And they just have fresh lobster. Like they pick it up from the ocean, like right behind their backyard.
Okay.
And lobster rolls to die for.
Excellent. Very cool. Well, when folks are heading up there, they now have 2 suggestions as to where they can stop and what they need to get. Carmela, thank you so much for being on. And to all my listeners, I appreciate you being with us today. I hope that you have learned something from a very smart person. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe, give us some feedback, let us know what you're thinking, or just say hi, stop by the website, use the contact us page. If you're wondering where you can listen to this besides our website, there's a subscribe button and it'll show you everywhere that you can find this. Thanks again for being here. I will remind you, as always, that when you stop learning, stop living. Have a great day, everybody.